and this will benefit humanity in the mighty name of Jesus. Whatever we are
Amen.
learning today will not stand against us, because we will
Amen.
use it to benefit human beings, and we'll all be
Amen.
blessed. While the glory will be to your holy name, Daddy. For in Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much for that beautiful prayer. Yes, without wasting much of our time, we want to start this lecture today. But before going into the lecture proper, I want to appreciate every one of you that have made it to um, start this meeting. It's a very encouraging one because we have about 32 participants. We really do appreciate every one of you present, all our pharmacists in different places. I recognize you all. Our professors present, I recognize you all our PharmD holders, everybody is recognized. All HODs present, you are recognized. Everyone, the fellows of the West African Postgraduate College, you all are recognized. Fellows of the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, you all are recognized. I welcome you all for this special edition. I also, in a special way, welcome and appreciate our SIPAN National Education Chairman, Pharmacist Ifoma Ebere Moma. She's been doing a very wonderful job. You're welcome. I welcome you. Yes, without wasting our time, we want to go straight into the lecture. But before doing that, I must not fail to appreciate Dr. Bello, that has been the engine house behind all these Zoom meetings. He has been supplying all the links. He's been doing a very wonderful job. We recognize you, Dr. Bello. Thank you for the good job you are doing. Yes, we have a very important lecture today. When medicine skill, who to blame? A very beautiful lecture that we'll be expecting to be delivered by somebody that is very important to us. But before I call the name of the professor, our erudite professor, I want to say that our professor is the first professor of pharmacy administration in West Africa. He is the chairman of the Joint Faculty Board of West African Postgraduate College of Pharmacists. He's the past dean of the Faculty of Pharmacy in Obafemi Awolowo University. He has supervised 5 PhD students, many master students, and over 40 West African Postgraduate College Pharmacy Fellowship students. I think that is awesome. He has a lot of things he has done, but because of time, we will not be able to say it all. Then I want to talk about some of his recognitions. He is a pharmacist of excellence, a distinguished service awardee from various states of various state branches of Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria. He is a fellow of the Nigerian Academy of Pharmacists. He is a fellow of the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria. An erudite scholar, an erudite professor, a professor par excellence, a father indeed, a mentor. Permit me to introduce to you our speaker for today, no other person but our daddy, our father, our professor, a lover of the profession of pharmacy, Professor Wilson Aaron. Please can we give him a round of applause as he begins his lecture? Professor Wilson Aaron, you're welcome. Please, you have the floor. Prof,
Yeah,
you have the floor. Thank you very much.
yeah, thank you so much. Please confirm if I'm audible.
You are,
Yes,
Prof. Not very
Okay,
audible.
okay. Not very audible.
Yes, your voice is a little bit far.
sir. Good evening, sir.
Do better. You can do better.
You're
You
audible,
are
sir.
very,
Very
Aaron,
audible.
you are very audible in Ghana. Don't mind them.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
it
Very
is well,
audible.
yes. Yeah, because I noticed that it was breaking as the introduction was going on. So I was wondering whether it was my network or it's something else. Please,
You are very low in
the
Liberia.
You are very audible in Nigeria, sir.
Okay.
okay. Okay. I hope I just pray the network will not disturb us. Thank you so much, moderator. I really want to appreciate you. I think it's important that I recognize, if I recognize nobody, I think I must recognize the president of the West African Postgraduate College of Pharmacists, uh, Professor Hasiba Tape from Liberia. And there was a voice, background voice, that spoke about hearing me in Ghana. That is actually the first vice president of the West African Postgraduate College of Pharmacists. Because of time, and I hope that the participants will be recognized at the appropriate time. So I will just share my screen and proceed with the interaction today. We hope that I've been given a few minutes, so I will try to keep within the time frame I've been given. And the topic we want to address is when medicines kill. Who to blame? Who to blame? We are going to be looking at the Nigerian context, which may not be significantly different from the Anglophones context. That their law actually is common law. That is the foundation, unlike the Francophone, which is civil law as the foundation. So we see a lot of similarities between the Nigerian context as well as the other Anglophone countries. And we're also going to be looking at the jurisprudential foundations. And when you're talking about jurisprudence, you're actually referring to things about the policy, things about philosophy, looking at the philosophy behind the law, which is actually looking at law in action, and then the basis for why these laws are in place so they can be interrogated. I think that is the beauty of jurisprudence. And then we are going to be looking at the layers of responsibility when we're talking about blame, and we'll also compare civil consequences and criminal consequences, particularly where you have negligence. And then system failure, when you compare that to individual blame, we'll now proceed to talk about the need for us to be able to exercise some courage and also how we can prevent some of these things that happen. And then I'll do a final reflection. The power to heal is also the power to harm. Medicines can kill. Medicines can cure. And the particular mechanism through which they cure is an extension of that mechanism that they use to kill. So medicines can save lives, but when medicines kill, the consequences could be legal. They could be professional consequences. They could also be institutional consequences. And indeed, it could be moral in nature. But this night, we are trying to ask a very difficult question. When medicines kill, who do you blame? Who do you blame? In the Nigerian context, like I also mentioned, is also similar with the other Anglophone countries of Ghana, of Liberia, of the Gambia, of Sierra Leone. We are all brothers in this context. You'll find that there have been reports, particularly in Nigeria. Recently, there was this issue of chemotherapy overdosing incident that went viral. We also talk about pediatric dosing errors, which are common, administration of expired medicines. These are things that have been found to exist within the system. Circulation of counterfeit and substandard medicines. The issue of medication mix-ups within the hospital setting. A medication is given and then somehow it is mixed up, labeled, something else is labeled. You want to give 3 tablets of 200 milligrams of camoquine, instead you give 300 milligrams of 3 tablets of 600 milligrams of camoquine, because one single tablet is a 600 milligram tablet as against 200 milligram tablet. So these are things that happen. And when these events happen, it shakes public confidence. And you will find that blame may not be too easy in terms of determining who exactly to blame. So when medicines kill, the courts will examine, particularly when these cases are taken to court. They want to look at the duty of care, the breach of duty of the professional, the causation, how did it happen, the damage that it has caused. And indeed, when you're talking about the duty of care, particularly the doctrine of the duty of care, it originated in the UK from a judgment of Donegal versus Stevenson. That was in 1932. It was actually that established the neighbor principle. Talking about neighbor principle is like saying any person that your action is going to affect within your vicinity is your neighbor. So if you carry out an action that is going to negatively affect that person, it would be expected that you would have thought through the process to ensure that that person is not affected by your action. In Nigeria, this negligence principle have also been affirmed in the case of Ojo and Ojo versus Garoro. It's a Supreme Court position where they confirm that medical professionals actually owe patients a duty of care and may be liable for breach resulting in harm. So liability could be of different forms. We are going to see that as we go on. So civil, when does error become crime? When does error become crime? Civil negligence is different from criminal negligence. Criminal liability requires gross negligence, which is like a conduct that is showing disregard for life. And most of the time, we really see more of civil negligence than criminal gross negligence. That means more of civil liability than criminal liability. In Nigeria, the gross negligence could be something that will amount to manslaughter. That's when you look at it under the criminal code. So you talk about an error becoming a crime when it is actually like a gross negligence. It becomes a crime only when it's actually a gross negligence. Not that it cannot be actionable if it is not gross, but when it is actionable as a gross negligence, then it becomes criminal liability. There is a professional standard of care. A professional is not negligent because a patient dies. No, no. A patient could die, but the professional may not necessarily be negligent. In the case of Bolam and Friend Hospital Management Committee, that what we refer to as the Bolam test, he said the conduct that is consistent, that is the Bolam test, is the conduct that is consistent with the responsible body of professional opinion. That means if, for example, a patient dies by reason of an action, a patient dies by reason of an action, other professionals should be able to say that this action of this particular professional could be referred to as being negligent. So the onus to prove that in the court setting, of course, we know where it will lie. Nigerian courts particularly, unlike the other Anglophone jurisdictions, they often apply similar reasoning in evaluating medical negligence. So medical negligence is not negligence that only one person can propound. It must also be something that the average professional will see it as negligent. Will see it as negligent, and there are so many decided cases in this direction. So let's look at the layers of the people that can possibly be blamed when there is a death arising from medicine use, or when there is a death arising from a medical intervention. The very first layer is the layer of the prescriber. He initiates the process. And this can result to can be a problem, particularly when diagnosis was not proper. So there was failure to diagnose properly. There was failure in adjusting for issues of renal or hepatic impairment, which will affect the metabolism of a medicine that would have been prescribed. There is the issue of checking for interactions. Failure to check for interactions. Two drugs that may either physically interact or biologically interact. And indeed, there could also be the failure to consider pediatric dosing. A decided case in 2006 of a failure of professional diligence also resulted in liability. Pharmacists, talking about the prescriber, it's important for one to say that pharmacists must remember, and you and I, pharmacists, we must remember that prescribing error does not eliminate dispensing responsibility. Prescribing error does not eliminate dispensing responsibility. That means, though the prescriber has prescribed something that was in error, and the pharmacist decides to dispense that prescription in error, that does not exonerate the pharmacist. So that is the first layer in terms of trying to get a person to blame when there is a death arising or mortality arising from the process. The second layer is the layer of the pharmacist. The pharmacist's liability could actually arise from dispensing the wrong drug, because the dispensing table is cluttered, and mistakenly takes a drug that ought not to have been dispensed and dispenses that drug as another drug. It could be the issue of wrong strength. The case I just mentioned many years ago in one facility, where a patient came on and the prescriber simply wrote 3 tablets of amodiaquine, 3 tablets of amodiaquine, assuming that every tablet of amodiaquine is 200 milligrams. That was the standard that the prescriber knew. And then the pharmacist just saw 3 tablets of amodiaquine. Unfortunately, the pharmacist was not a very experienced pharmacist, and all that he just took was the 3 tablets. And the tablets that they had at that point in time were 600 milligrams tablet rather than 200 milligrams tablet. So he gave 3 tablets of 600 milligrams. Thank God the patient had not taken the medicine when it was discovered. They had to send for the patient, and they were able to identify and corrected it before the harm was done. Wrong strength. Failure to identify fatal interaction. Fatal interaction. Lack of counseling. Failure to question irrational prescription and just taking the prescription as a gold star, a must, as a command that must be obeyed. You see, in Nigerian disciplinary proceedings, and many of them, before the Pharmacists Council of Nigeria, now Pharmacy Council of Nigeria, pharmacists have faced suspension for dispensing controlled medicines without due process. I'm sure that the same kind of case can be cited in the other Anglophone countries. Even if cases are not widely reported in law, like we see in the book that I'm putting together, which by the grace of God will be launched in May, we just found that there are so many, that you find many of these things happen, the cases are really not reported. They are not reported. So when you are searching for jurisprudential evidence, you actually cannot lay your hand on some of them. So we simply use illustrative cases. So regulatory discipline could be real and enforceable, but because they are not widely reported, we have such things in scarce supply. So the first layer is the prescriber, the second layer is the pharmacist, the third layer is the manufacturer. Substandard medicines have caused deaths in Nigeria, have caused deaths in all the other Anglophone countries, looking at our West African sub-region or the ECOWAS region. NAFDAC in Nigeria, for example, has repeatedly seized all manners of contaminated products, whether syrups, whether counterfeit antibiotics, even oncology products that are substandard. But note, manufacturer liability principles have been reinforced. And we should also know that for a manufacturer cannot, just like a pharmacist, cannot ride on the back of a prescriber to say that the dispensing that you've done, the medicine that have been dispensed that were wrong, were because they were prescribed by a licensed and a registered and licensed prescriber, medical practitioner. So he just dispensed because of that authority. A manufacturer cannot rely on the authority of regulatory approval as a shield from liability. For example, is it FDA in Ghana? Is it NAFDAC in Nigeria? That the product has been registered cannot be used as an evidence to substantiate the challenges that people are facing in using the medicine. No, regulatory approval is not a shield. So that is the third layer of persons to consider when we want to blame. So the regulatory environment, there is the enforcement that normally would take place. There could be a closure of the manufacturing facility where there is a breach. There could be arrest of fake drug distribution. There could be destruction of counterfeit medicines, and we have seen so much of this. And you begin to wonder, money going into flames, and you wonder why people will invest so much money in order to kill other people because they want to make money, billions of naira or cedis, as the case may be, or the Liberian dollar, as the case may be. When fake or substandard medicines kill, the responsibilities may include the importer may have imported substandard products. The distributor in distributing may not have maintained the cold chain. The regulatory oversight may not have been able to adequately monitor to see for aberrations in the process, and that is oversight failure. Or there could just simply be corruption within the supply chain, undercutting the entire process. All of these are enforcement issues that have to do with regulatory bodies. So they could also be held liable in some cases. But because they are agents of government, the way the law approaches them is not the same way the law approaches the other people that we can possibly blame. The fourth layer is institutional liability. A pharmacist works in a hospital. The pharmacist works in a community pharmacy. The pharmacy works in an industry. When in the case of hospital or pharmacy chains, you may have liability under vicarious liability. And note, when a staff is negligent, the hospital in which the staff is working can also be liable. In fact, the celebrated case of Cassidy and the Ministry of Health is a case in point. In Nigeria, we have seen private hospitals having made to pay damages for systemic medical negligence under high court judgments. What does that imply? I think the time is now, even the book I'm referring to that will be launched in May, there's a chapter on insurance. I think the time is now that we should begin to look at institutions where health professionals are engaged. The institution should be interested in having to provide insurance cover for their own staff in cases of negligence. People don't deliberately go into be negligent unless there is something that is psychologically wrong, to put it very mildly. So institutional liability, when the staff of an institution is liable, the institution may also be vicariously liable. And then layer number 5 is system failure. How would a pharmacist that is being overworked, and instead of the 12-hour shift, and there is no break, and if it does a shift and the normal break period is not available, and then it's overworked, it's overstretched, and naturally as a human being, errors are more likely to happen. And because of that, you find that errors that should ordinarily not be will begin to see them. And in a system where you don't have within the system as a policy, as a standard operating procedure in the scheme of dispensing of medication, there is no double check policy. That could be a problem. Where you do not have electronic prescribing, it could also be a problem. We have seen cases where even a prescriber writes a prescription. Another medical doctor cannot interpret what the prescriber has written. How will the pharmacist interpret it? Then similar packaging, look-alikes, sound-alike drugs. These are all possibilities. Poor storage facility. These are issues of system failures. Note, errors are really about bad people. They are about bad systems. When the system is wrong, everything within the system tends not to go right. So we should fix the system. Blame, therefore, may be structural, not necessarily the individuals that or the professionals that work within the system. Layer number 6, the patient himself. Patients may contribute to their own death. Why? Non-adherence, overdose. We saw a case of an individual, well, not literate, was prescribed the medication. Thank God for the intervention, and the drug he was given was very, very tiny, and very tiny drug. And somehow he has been using paracetamol, which is a much bigger tablet, and he takes paracetamol 2 tablets 3 times a day. And now this very tiny drug, he was told to take only one at night. And he asked himself, how can I take only one small tablet when I've been taking this big one too? I should be able to increase the quantity. Thank God for God's intervention. I think that would just have been the end of that story. So overdose can come through all manners. Self-medication, which will prone to interaction between herbal medicines and as well as interacting with the orthodox medicines. Just mixing the drugs together. We see a situation where a patient is on admission in a hospital, and the prescriber is prescribing medicines, and the nurse and the nursing station is administering the drugs. But after the nurse had administered the drug, if the patient takes the drug, there is another caregiver who has accompanied that patient to the ward, who is supposed to be looking after the patient, has another bottle, a bottle of a mixture, a herbal mixture that he will now administer to the patient on the hospital ward without the knowledge of the health professional. And you are wondering, this drug that has been prescribed, the patient is using it. Why are we not seeing the effect we should see? These are realities, and this can only be blamed on the patient. Concealment of medical history. Somebody said you don't go to a physician and then not disclose the details. Because of what use? The person has headache, and the prescriber is asking you, do you have headache? He said, no, I don't have headache. I actually have a pain on my leg. So what prescription is the prescriber going to give? So the patient has a responsibility. And indeed, under contributory negligence principles, because of that, damages may be reduced when that is established. These are 6 layers, very key layers. But I did mention that when you have gross negligence and when it is proven, then it could result in manslaughter charges, issues of imprisonment could be for gross negligence or permanent loss of license. Of course, the threshold could be very high. It could be very high for criminal liability. When it is civil liability, the consequences are lighter. Monetary damages, professional discipline, which will could involve suspending the pharmacist for a while and then restoring, license suspension, and also, but we know, reputational damage. When somebody becomes liable and then is found to have been in a court of law declared to be at fault by judgment, that has a very serious reputational implication. And that is why it is better to avoid these things. Blame culture versus safety culture. Where should we go? When we focus on blame, then it produces silence. Nobody wants to talk. When we focus on blame, then fear. People are afraid. A person has made an error, instead of owning up to the error, because if he owns up, there's going to be a problem. Perhaps he may lose his job, or the consequences could be deleterious. He decides to keep quiet because of fear. Or in fact, decides to be defensive. Defensive. You have made a mistake. Why don't you simply mistake and let the system go on? So we should not be focusing on blame. That is a wrong culture. What we should be looking at is a safety culture where we report incidents. We encourage people to report their experiences in terms of incidents. We are able to analyze the root causes of any problem that we see, and indeed redesign the system by reason of the root causes that we see. Somebody said, and I agree, transparency is the oxygen of patient safety. And when there is no oxygen, there is death. So transparency is that oxygen. We must be transparent. At the very worst, we should be transparent. Courage. We need courage. A pharmacist talking about these issues of liability, a pharmacist must sometimes refuse unsafe prescriptions. In the eye of the law, you cannot say you dispense the prescription which you know can kill a patient, and you dispense it because the prescriber said you must dispense it, and you dispense it and you know they can kill a patient, and the patient dies. Both that pharmacist and the prescriber are equally liable. So there must be a time you say, no, I'm not going to do this. We must be able to get to a time we should call the prescriber when we see discrepancies based on our knowledge and because you can also have situations where the prescriber is a consultant of very many years experience, and then you find that by his own practical experiences, he can decide to adjust some doses, which may not be in consonance with the doses that are recorded in the literature. But experience within the facility, which have been documented and even presented within that facility, shows that that is a safe way to go. Then that requires dialogue. There are times you may have to delay dispensing because you are not so sure of the situation you are in. Indeed, objections that are made by the prescriber when the pharmacist approaches the prescriber should be documented. They are important because that could just be the saving grace for the patient when when the ships are down. Professional courage prevents funerals. Professional courage can actually prevent death. Professional courage, and times we must establish that. So a call to action. As pharmacists in the Anglophone, it's not much different. Even the jurisprudence of the Francophone countries, though the one is civil law, one is common law, but they are basically focused on public health, the safety of the patient. That is the focus. So where I say Nigerian pharmacists, we can actually replace Nigerian pharmacists with just pharmacists. But in our client, we need to strengthen clinical documentation. We say when it is not documented, it's not done. We need to strengthen clinical documentation. We need to implement double check protocols. Double check protocols. There are medications that we need to have to do that, particularly at the world level. Now we are encouraging ward round, and with those institutions that have not yet begun to do this, we are seeing more people having to adopt this, which is the way to go. The pharmacist goes to the ward not because he has no work to do, not because he just wants to go to the ward, but because he has responsibility to ensure that the medicine that have been prescribed that he has dispensed is used adequately. And he follows the drug to the ward to see how the drug is interacting with It is affecting the patient that is using that drug. That is why he goes to the ward to monitor how the drug is being used and see the consequences of the use of the drug, and then be able to provide advice when necessary. We should see it in that right perspective, not because a pharmacist must wear a coverall because he wants to be in world round with medical doctors and all that. It is not that. It is to be able to improve upon the use of medicines at that level. We should be able to improve patient counseling, either outpatient or inpatient. We should improve our patient counseling. We should be able to report adverse drug reactions to the regulatory body, depending on the country in question. The Liberian Health Authority, or whatever, or the Pharmacy Board of Sierra Leone, the equivalent also in the Gambia. We should be able to report. We should be able to report adverse drug reactions. We should be able to maintain our continuing professional development rigorously. If we do not maintain our competence, we'll expire. Reading, I keep saying, I tell anybody that is close to me, I keep talking about this. Reading maketh a man. When you stop reading, you start dying intellectually. When you stop reading, you start reducing pharmaceutically in terms of knowledge. We must refuse unsafe shortcuts. There are some shortcuts that you must refuse. When we are labeling prescription envelopes for prescriptions, we should ensure that we put the label that will be understandable by the person to whom the prescription is being delivered. Excellence is not an act. Excellence, Aristotle said, is a habit. And a habit is built from repetitive action. That is how habits are formed. And excellence comes from positive habits that have been built over the time. It's not just saying I'm going to be excellent. It is a process, and you finally get to the point, and you must maintain that situation, and that is a call to action. So who is to blame? Having said all of this, when medicine kills, sometimes you can blame the prescriber. When medicine kills, sometimes you can blame the pharmacist. Sometimes you can blame the manufacturer. Sometimes you can blame the regulator. Indeed, sometimes you may also blame the patient, but often multiple actors across the chain are the people to blame. Rarely is it only one person that you are going to blame. Therefore, instead of asking, who do we punish? We must also ask, how do we prevent recurrence? How do we prevent recurrence? And that question is more important than who is to blame. How do we prevent recurrence is the positive way of facing the same situation so that it does not happen again. When you put that structure in place and it does not happen again, the system benefits from the process. In closing, note, the measure of a profession is not whether it makes mistakes, but it is whether the profession learns from the mistakes it had made. And this applies to us as individuals. When medicine kills, let it never be because we were careless. Let it never be because we were silent. Let it never be because we were afraid to act. Let it never be because we abandoned our gatekeeping role, which is a very crucial role in terms of medicines moving from our shelves right down to the patient and then being consumed by the patient. Let us be remembered, not as dispensers of drugs. Let us be remembered as the protectors of life, as the protectors of life. And that is exactly who we are. I thank you so much for your kind attention. God bless you.
Wow, wow, wow. That was a very wonderful and awesome presentation by our professor. Thank you very much, Professor Wilson Aaron, for that very educative lecture, for that very beautiful presentation. Yes, our professor has actually told us that there is negligence. There is usually negligence that causes, when medicines fail or when medicines kill. It's usually as a result of negligence, which could be civil negligence. It could be criminal negligence. And he told us very importantly that there are various layers or people or persons to be blamed when medicine kills. It talks about the prescriber, it talks about the pharmacists, talked about the manufacturers, the institution, system failure, and the patients themselves. And he laid emphasis on the fact that we should abolish the blame culture, but rather embrace safety culture. This is how we can prevent, deaths from medicine misuse or, being prescribed wrongly. And he has said that even if the prescriber makes a mistake, the onus lies on the pharmacist to ensure that he does the needful by intervening, and that it is a collective effort of both the prescriber, the pharmacist, and the institution and the patients to ensure that patients don't, die unnecessarily from mistakes or from negligence. Thank you very much, Professor, for that beautiful and awesome presentation. In the course of Professor's presentation, very important dignitaries came in, and one of them is my own former HOD, the Director of Pharmaceutical Services, Federal Medical Center, OWO, Dr. Mrs. Oluwatimileyin, FPSN. You are recognized, ma'am.
I want to collect from Andy number. I want to collect from Andy. From Andy number.
Also, in the process of the presentation, my boss also came in, Pharmacist Ogujemiyo, FPSN. You are recognized, sir. The immediate past chairman of MCPAN, Dr. Joseph Madu, you are recognized, sir. And our very amiable Amazon, the CPAN National Chairman, Dr. Maureen Wanfo, you are recognized, ma'am. I also want to recognize my colleagues, pharmacist Ogunaike, the immediate past AHAP chairman of Federal Medical Center War, and also my colleague pharmacist Olowo Shusi. You all are recognized. I also want to recognize Dr. Timepre, the National Publicity Officer, and Dr. Obiajuru, the National Financial Officer 1, and pharmacist Raleigh Adams, the Registrar, Pharmacist Council of Nigeria Republic. You all are welcome and recognized. I also, in a very special way, welcome Professor Weir, all the way from Ghana. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you. I also want to appreciate Dr. Rita Ukedi and Dr. Orebiyi. Thank you all for joining this very wonderful presentation. Yes, I know that in the course of the presentation, you may have had one question or the other you want to ask, or you want some clarifications you want to make. So I want you to please signify by the raising up of hands so that we can recognize you. I can see. Are there questions? That was all. Do we need any clarification from Prof? Because it was a very wonderful presentation, a well presented lecture. So I don't know if you have questions or comments. Please, you have the floor. If you have any questions or comments, so that we can recognize you. Do we have anyone?
One hand is up.
Okay, one hand is up. Okay, I can see Grace Steven. Yes, please, you can go ahead and ask your question, or you can please unmute and ask your question.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Grace Steven. I'm not a pharmacist. I'm a dietitian and also a nutritionist. But I must say that it was really a very beautiful presentation. Thank you very much, Prof. And what I really want to say here is that I discovered that most of the things he has said most especially in the aspect of professionalism and practice. I think for my own institution, hospital where I work, I think there's a little huge gap. So many things that I discovered that some of the pharmacists there are not really doing it. So I think this is an opportunity to also maybe reach out to some of them, though I share this the information with them to join. I don't know why some of them were not
Hello,
here,
have
but
we lost you? Okay. Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard me, Ma.
Yeah, partially.
All right, thank you very
From
much.
are you there? Oh, it's gone.
Okay, thank you very much. Grace Stephen.
Is it my network?
No, no one is speaking. So,
Okay, so I was wondering, I said maybe it's my network.
no, it wasn't. Well, this I could hear.
Okay, okay.
Yes, thank you.
Can any school member take over? Okay, Firma is back. So it's your
Yes,
network.
yes, it's the network. Yes, thank you
Okay.
very much.
Okay.
I don't know. That was Grace Stephen. She asked her question. I don't know, maybe in the course of my being away.
Network.
Ah,
Your
so
network is
please,
still
Dr. Suleiman. Hello?
Good evening, everyone.
Yes, Dr. Suleiman. Yes, please, can you talk? Thank you. So, Dr. Suleiman Ademola, you have the floor.
Good evening, everyone.
yeah, good evening.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, let me start by thanking my lecturer, my mentor. I don't think I can ask him any question. Who am I to ask my teacher the question? So, I just want to thank him for what he has done. And I also want to make an addition, especially in the aspect of
Dr.
defenses.
Suleiman.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Yes, we can.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Oh, okay. Though he actually made mention of contributing negligence from the patient as well as institutional deficiency. One other thing that we must also appreciate is that sometimes negligence do happen, just like he has said. We must also equip the professionals, in this case, pharmacists, because when such thing actually happen, if you are not well equipped, you will be the solely one that will be punished. And so I think education is very, very important. And I wouldn't know whether it is the PSN or the PCN that may take it as a responsibility during the continuous education, so that the emphasis on your right as well as your duty, so that when you have done your duty and things comes up, just like he has said, that sometimes something happened, you as a pharmacist, even if you are going to be punished, you should be punished appropriately, not taking all the blames. Because sometimes when issue that has to do with drugs comes up, it may not be the only pharmacist that is negligent, And he may not even be a pharmacist at all, but because it has to do with the drugs, everything goes to him or her. So I think the emphasis should also be put on what is our defenses as professionals when things happen. Thank you. And thank you, my teacher. I'm so proud of you.
Dr. Suleiman, thank you very much for that comment. Yes, we appreciate you. Please, do we have any other comments or any other? Okay. Pharmacist Ogunjemi of FPSN, my Oga, please, you have the floor, sir. Pharmacist
Yes, thank
Ogunjemi
you.
of.
Yes, thank you very much for recognizing me. I want to appreciate Professor Aaron for that wonderful presentation. We actually don't expect less from him. My dear Prof, sir, I want a sincere answer to this. Assuming that you have a prescription sheet and to the best of your knowledge, you have a kind of issue with that prescription and you got across to the prescriber, maybe a consultant or whatever, and the consultant tells you that from experience that you should go or you should dispense as such, and you go ahead and ask the consultant, put it into writing, and the person puts it into writing and go ahead and dispense and signs against it. I want to ask, if peradventure something happens along the line, is that pharmacy still liable, knowing fully well that ab initio the person has issues with either the dose or whatever concerning that particular medication? So a sincere answer, sir. Thank you.
Yes, I think, should we give Prof? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think you want to respond to that, Prof?
Okay. Yes. Actually, I've been thrown off, in and out, and I tried to join. The capacity has been exceeded. Please, just for the future, if we are going to run a program like this, where we anticipate that the number will exceed 100, please, I can give you a link so that we can take it up to about 250.
Thank you
If
very
we
much.
must get it to that, or else CPAN can also just, for that particular one, just make a subscription increase for that particular day, so that you have one-off subscription for that particular event, because very
Thank you
many
very
people
much.
have been having issues joining the capacity of 100. But now to what was asked. By the way, I missed out. I was thrown out at the time, couldn't re-enter. But this one, I will start with this, then I'll talk about the one that was raised by our colleague, the dietitian and nutritionist. For a prescription, in the eyes of the law, from all that I've seen, in the eyes of the law, if the prescriber has countersigned means you can hold me responsible for what has happened. That is what the countersigning means. You can hold me responsible for what has happened. That actually is no different from the original order of the prescription, because the original prescription that was signed is an order to dispense. And that order to dispense, if you as a pharmacist knows that that particular prescription will cause mortal harm to the patient, in the eyes of the law, it will be wisdom not to dispense that medication. Why do I say this? Because if the patient dies, there is no way that pharmacist is going to be exonerated. Let's just think through the process. It is not the prescriber that handed over the medicine to the patient. It's the pharmacist. And the pharmacist is saying, as a professional, that you knew that this medicine is going to, it may end up killing the patient because of your knowledge of the drug, and you proceed to hand it over to the patient because somebody told you, who is not as knowledgeable as you are with respect to medicine, told you you must hand it over to the patient, and the patient dies, that pharmacist cannot be completely exonerated. It is from all cases that we have looked at, decided cases, that pharmacist cannot be exonerated. It can be exonerated. If now it is not a question of gross, it doesn't result in mortality, then of course it can be. You know that some of these things that they insist on is more of a question of perhaps there could be the side effect is what we are looking at, and that is why we want to ensure that we reduce on it. But if it will result in mortality, in the eyes of the law, the pharmacist is not going to be exonerated. We used to think that the prescriber is like an order that must be obeyed. If somebody tells you, gives you a gun, and says, shoot this person, I'm telling you, shoot the person, and you shoot the person and the person dies, even in the military, the person who ordered you to shoot that person, the person who gave the command, of course, will be held responsible. But I'm not too sure whether the person that obeyed the command will be completely free. Even in the military, they have ways to do their own court martial, but in medicine, that pharmacist cannot be exonerated because he's extremely not, he's a professional in his own right. That is all I have looked at. That is what I found. That's what I found. The nutritionist, that's my honest position. It may be debatable, but that's my honest position based on a few cases that I've also looked at, which can easily be cited. For the nutritionist, who also talked about colleagues who ought to have been here, and the things they are doing in our own facility, which are really not happening the way they should. I want to encourage her to please just push this across. The more we cannot do what we do not know. Mhm. It is only what we know that we can do. And unfortunately, the person that need to hear what we are saying may not be present to hear. So they will end up making the mistake that they are making. So we need to be able to ensure that we just spread it around. That is why the slides, of course, I'm sure that the leadership of SIPAN will be putting across all the platforms very soon. I thank you.
Very much, Prof.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that golden response. That pharmacists, we cannot shy away from being liable when mortality is involved. So we have to use wisdom. We have to ensure that we do not dispense such prescriptions. So somebody is asking a question: what happens if the pharmacist refuses and the patient dies from non-dispensing? Prof, over to you, sir.
It's becoming very
That's a
interesting.
follow-up from.
If the pharmacist refuses and the patient dies from non-dispensing, the truth is there will be very few instances, but they may exist. They may exist where you have a pharmacist and the pharmacist says that this dose is not the right dose, and the pharmacist will not just be telling the prescriber this is not the correct dose. There must be data, publications, evidence to be able to show for the prescriber to do a rethinking. But like I also said, if based on the experience of the prescriber, which could be demonstrable, and the prescriber is saying, based on my experience, this is what I want done, then it's a delicate balance. But then we'll strike the balance. But whether we refuse to dispense, if we refuse to dispense and the patient dies, we will not be exonerated. If we dispense and the patient dies, we will not be exonerated. So we need to apply wisdom to know the direction to go. But evidence is the most important factor. evidence. And I believe that if we have adequate evidence, documentation to prove the position we are holding, I'm sure that the prescriber also, they are reasonable people unless we are not working together in the same environment. But I promise I will answer those two questions more definitively and post them and send my own responses. This is just of course. I will send my detailed responses to the leadership. Yeah.
So we'll continue to
my network.
apply wisdom, and God will help us as professionals.
I think the net moderator is having issues with our network.
Yes. And actually, somebody has also clarified that. He said, how do you prove that the lack of dispensing is the cause of the death? I don't think there's a way to prove that. Kudos. That makes some sense, actually. It makes some sense. But I think the issue is a lot of wisdom is necessary. Basma, I can see your hand there.
Oh yeah. I, if I'm permitted,
Please go ahead, Prof.
Yeah, Professor Issa said you should go ahead.
Is a very kind person. So my take on this, honestly, I'm on the same page with Professor Aaron. However, if you know what you are doing as a professional, there should be a meeting point. There should be an agreement. Remember that in pharmacy, we did pharmacology for 4 good years on the average, compared to those who were learning on the job. Not only that we know pharmacology, we also know the mechanisms. So nobody will be able to now come and say, this is the way I want it done. You know, it will be naive, or I don't know what other adjective to use. But to establish that the pharmacists must have a convincing last word. Convincing is the underlying word, such that when you go and meet the prescriber, the two of you should be able to get to middle of the way agreement in terms of experience and in terms of knowledge. Because there are no joint, you don't share blame when it comes to dispensing. The prescriber did not dispense. It's the pharmacist that did. So at the end of the day, drug issues, especially drug errors, should have been corrected by the pharmacist. And I still say that the pharmacist, even if they have to delay that decision until they cross-check all the reference books and all the experiences, let it be, because the blame may not go, beyond the goalkeeper, who is the pharmacist. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Olayiwola, for that, your comment. I don't know if Prof wants to respond to what Prof said, because I was actually away. I didn't listen to what Prof said or question. Okay.
Well, yeah, thank you. Briefly, with the common law jurisdiction that we are operating in Nigeria and also the Anglophone countries, the pharmacist may refuse to dispense where you have, if the prescription is invalid. In any case, you will not dispense it. If the prescription is false, you will not dispense it. If there are clear dosing errors, you will not dispense it. If there's a contraindication or a dangerous interaction, you will not dispense it. If the medicine that has been prescribed is legally restricted and it ought not to be on the prescription, you will not dispense it. And if the prescriber himself is not even authorized, you will not dispense it, And where there's a suspected abuse or diversion, you will not dispense it. So there are concrete conditions under which the pharmacist could actually refuse to dispense. But it's a duty of care. Let's look at this. If a patient presents, for example, an adrenaline prescription during maybe anaphylaxis, and the pharmacist refuses without cause, that could be a breach. However, if the pharmacist refuses because the prescription is clearly unsafe, for example, 10 times overdose, that is likely proper professional conduct. It's not a misconduct. Because if he dispenses, that will be a serious harm to the patient. And he refuses, that is not professional misconduct. That is right conduct based on his professional knowledge. I think that's all I can say at this time. Like I said, I will interrogate this further, where the main issue is that the pharmacist is not automatically liable. Liability depends on duty, depends on breach, depends on causation, depends on foreseeability. And indeed, where there is proper professional refusal, it can be defended, proper professional refusal. But reckless or unjustified refusal in an emergency could also attract civil, regulatory, or criminal consequences. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof, for the response. Sorry, please, because of time, we may not be able to entertain any further questions. So we want to hand over to our SIPAN national chairperson, Dr. Maureen, for her comments and contributions. Dr. Maureen Nwafo, please, you have the floor.
Good evening, distinguished colleagues. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you so much. I want to start by appreciating our dear erudite professor, a scholar indeed, our dear Professor Wilson Eru, for a wonderful presentation tonight. You can see participants, we have got more than 100, as you rightly said. It's because of who you are, and we all know what you can do. So many participants came in just to listen to you, and you continue to propel this our profession. So we are humbled. Thank you so much for coming in to share your knowledge with us. I want to also thank the moderator, Pharmacist Akerejola Yenisi. Thank you so much. Wow, tonight I cited so many eminent professors of pharmacy. Let me start by appreciating the president of the WAPCP. Wow. First vice president of WAPC, even our registrar of WAPCP. They're all here present. Thank you for honoring us tonight. I cited my dear Professor Bola Olaiwola. Sir, wow. We want to see you again next week, please, sir. Also, our dear Professor Bolajoko Aina is always with us. I want to extend my appreciation to my NEC members. All of them were here present. Thank you so much, the wonderful NEC of SIPAN. I also started from IPC, from Sogin Emilio. You're always here with us. Thank you. I want to appreciate all members of SIPAN who join us tonight and those who are not members of SIPAN. If you go back to the chat now, you see a contact they're going to call to help you join SIPAN. Register and join us. Become a registered member of SIPAN. Also, those of us who are members, please kindly renew your annual dues. Okay. I want to start by saying that tonight is call to action for us pharmacists. that we should stop blaming our colleagues or other healthcare professionals. Let us start to look at how to prevent such medication errors or thereabout from reoccurring. Okay, so let us go back to our practice, our institutions, start documenting, counsel our patients, counsel your patients. I hope I'm audible. Let us start to prepare protocols and SOPs so that when you are there or not, the other pharmacists can still do exact things that should be done in order to prevent, even identify or resolve drug therapy problems. I will end by saying that excellence is not an art, it is a habit. Let us pursue excellence in our practice. Thank you once more for joining us tonight. See you again next week Friday. God bless you all.
Thank you very much, our very dear Dr. Maureen, for your wonderful comments. I want to appreciate you and your team for all you're doing. Thank you very much. Once again, I want to appreciate every one of us for taking time to be at this presentation. Your presence really made the presentation worthwhile. We appreciate you. So as we round up, I'll call on Pharmacist Bilikisu Mojirola to give us the closing prayer. Pharmacist Bilikisu Mojirola. Amuda. Yes. Yes.
Good evening, everyone. We thank God Almighty for His mercies, for His blessings. We thank Him for helping us to see through the whole program and the knowledge that Prof has passed into us tonight. We pray to God Almighty to help us to be able to make use of the knowledge in all our practice, and may God Almighty continue to uplift pharmacy as a profession. May it continue to uplift every one of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Good night, everyone. Thank you very much.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Good
Good
night,
night.
everyone.